Hey everybody, it's Suzanne. It's April 15th, 2014, and we are going to extract some honey. These are the two honey supers that I'm going to extract. They're medium supers. So I expect to get between 30 and 40 pounds of honey out of each of these. And there's my extractor. I've got my bottling bucket with a sieve or filter on top. And this is going to filter out any wax or bee parts, because nobody wants bee parts in their honey. And it's still going to retain the pollen in the honey. So the pollen is small enough that it's going to be able to go through that. And here is my uncapping bucket. This is a bucket that we made, and those little golden bits are just wax. And here's my hot knife. I got to get it plugged in. That's just the lid to the Rubbermaid bin that we made our uncapping bucket out of. It's really important to keep your cappings and then strain those. If you don't keep your cappings, you're going to lose between 5 and 10% of your honey crop, depending on whether you use 9-frame or 10-frame equipment in your supers. Today I'm going to be extracting both. I'm going to have some frames that were drawn out in a 10-frame form and some frames that were drawn out in a 9-frame form. And the 9-frame is going to have thicker comb because there was more space. So that's the equipment you need for extracting honey. You need honey, you need an extractor, you need something to catch your wax caps in, and you need a hot knife, or I guess you could use a serrated knife, and you need something to filter out all the wax bits. This is a frame that was put in a 10-frame configuration. You can see right here that it doesn't come very far from the frame. I'm using, you can ask questions loud. What was your question, Nova?
Why do you use that?
I'm using this because it's hot and it cuts the caps off. There goes my caps into the bottom of my bucket.
Honey.
Honey.
I have to take 1 teaspoon of fresh honey because it helps my nose.
Yep. Eating honey is good for allergies. Can you go get Mommy a fork out of the drawer, please?
Yes.
I like to keep my hot knife on a cookie sheet. A plate is not really big enough for this. Thank you very much. The cookie sheet just works a lot better and it sits flat. And we lost the uncapping fork several years ago. Well, I said we, but I really meant Pops lost the uncapping fork. Just blew a fuse with the hot knife. Hopefully it's not broken.
That's a lot of honey there on the cookie.
Now we're going to do the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to put, well, I guess there's something wrong with my hot knife because that's the second fuse that's blown. So that means that I get to extract honey using a serrated knife. Oh goody, I am so excited. Goody gumdrops. Yeah, I mean a regular knife. It's not meant for...
What is I cute? What is that?
Yeah. So the moral of that story, I guess, is that after, I don't know, 8 years, I need a new hot knife. I'm going to use this. I've never used it before. I don't know if it's going to work, but I have my fingers crossed. Oh, this isn't bad. I say that now. I'm not done yet. Okay. You don't want to dig too far in. You'll mess up the comb. You just want to glide along the surface and try to keep the base of your knife on either side of the frame along the wood, but not cutting into the wood. Okay. These little bits are going to be more stubborn. I'll probably just use a fork on them if I can't get them. Let's try flipping it around first. It's telling me it's not going to happen. I'm stubborn. No, it's not worth it. Okay, so
Fork.
I'm gonna get the fork.
Come on, fingers crossed if it will work.
Yeah. Okay. I used to do this. Let's see if I can. Used to do this motion with an uncapping knife or a fork until I watched a video. I think it was a Brushy Mountain Bee Farm video. Maybe it wasn't, I don't remember, but on how to use an uncapping fork. And I mean, this works much better using it this way instead of scraping. You're not scraping, you're uncapping. You're sort of popping the top. That's how you should think of it. Obviously, an uncapping fork is a lot wider base than this, so you're gonna get finished a lot faster with that. But I think the theme of today's honey extracting experience is everything is going to take twice as long as it should, and I think I should just go ahead and accept that, and the whole process will be much less stressful for me.
If it takes so long, which it isn't, then that's good. If it doesn't take long.
Yep, and like Nova said, if it doesn't take very long, then I'll just be pleasantly surprised. Get these off back here. I think I just raked this earlier on the side
Gross.
before I remember the right way to do it. Okay.
The bees make honey. First they get pollen and then they make it into honey.
The bees make honey out of flower nectar. The pollen they make into bee bread. The pollen still looks like pollen. It's the nectar, it's the flower juice that they turn into honey. And they use the pollen or the bee bread they used to feed to their babies.
That's what I meant.
Okay, so here is your uncapped frame, and we are going to put this in the extractor and do the next frame. Okay, so there's our frame, and we're putting it in the extractor. Okay, down, 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 and a little trick, I don't know if you can see, there's a little hole down there. That little hole, hold that up, baby. That little hole down there, you want to get this brace piece into that, because if you don't, it's going to stick up and it's going to hit the lid when you rotate it. So we've got one frame in. We're going to put the next frame in right here. This is a 2-frame extractor. Alright, is it hard to turn that way or is it easy?
It's easy.
Try turn it the other way. Oh, that's the right way to turn it. Okay, so we put 2 frames in, and Nova is turning. She's going to get all that honey out, and then we're going to flip the frames around, and we're going to turn again. And then we're just going to repeat many more times. We only have 2 boxes today, so it shouldn't take too long. Here is a frame that has been extracted. These little globs that you see right there, these are just globs of pollen. I don't use a queen excluder on mine unless I have to. And for this one I didn't have to, but they tend to try to store some pollen up in it if there were brood anywhere close to this frame, which there may have been some below it. So you take that, it's going to be sticky. Wondering, how do I clean this up? Just put it back in the box and put it back on the hive. These will clean it up for you. So I forgot to mention, make sure that the valve is closed before you start extracting. because if it isn't, your honey's going to leak out. And the extractor is about full. See the honey in the bottom. A couple more frames, and it's going to be touching the bottom of the frame. Bottom of the frame is going to be dragging in it. So we have our bucket, we have our sieve, and we're going to make sure this is closed off real good. It is. Okay. Loosen this up. Lift up that valve. That looks delicious.
Yummy.
As you can see, there's some fine particles in there. These bubbles are going to go through. Larger pollen particles are going to go through, and some, well, I take that back. Small and large pollen particles are going to go through. Some of the large pollen particles tend to be a little bit grainy, so I like to scoop those off. And the way you do that, after you filter it out, you let your bucket sit for about a day, and you can skim the larger particles off the top. And by larger particles, I don't mean big chunks like this. I mean the little finer things right here that kind of look like bubbles. Those are going to go through the sieve, but I like taking those out. And they'll float to the top if you allow your honey to settle, which I always do.
Yep, that's right.
We're going to tilt this up a little bit.
Now it's getting full, isn't it?
Yep. So we got through about, I guess, 9 frames before we had to stop and drain it. So I don't know if it's audible on the video, but you can hear the honey dripping through the sieve or filter down into the bucket. So now we just have to do the rest of the next box. Well, that is the last of the honey from these 2 supers that I just harvested yesterday. Now it's time to go outside and get some sunshine and let this honey strain and settle out. Here I've scraped all the cappings and the honey out of my cappings collector. This is hands down the best tool for getting as much honey as possible to be skimmed from the inside of any container, whether it's Rubbermaid container or this bowl or the extractor. This little silicone spoon. And before this I was like, these things are so stupid, what are they made for? Well, I don't know what they're actually made for, but I like using mine for honey. It works really well. And so I'm gonna let the honey drain out of these cappings into this bowl. It's gonna take a while. I'm gonna cover it with some saran wrap so that moisture from the air doesn't get into the honey, because the number 1 rule is to keep everything dry. So we're gonna do that. Yes, Nova.